Welcome to Questions from the Closet. I'm Charlie Bird.
And I'm Ben Shalati. Each episode, we discuss a question that we commonly get asked as LGBTQ plus Latter-day Saints.
We're not trying to answer this question or come to a consensus, but simply sharing our perspectives. Today's question is, can I watch shows with LGBTQ plus characters?
So Charlie and I are not terribly diverse, and we share many opinions and life experiences. For example, we're both wearing my t-shirts.
However, there are some pretty big differences. For example, I really don't like this shirt.
It's a good shirt.
It just fits weird.
No, I actually love how it fits. I mean,
we have different bodies.
It's true.
What do you think the main difference is?
The reason we're wearing my shirts is we usually record 2 episodes in a row, and for continuity, we changed our shirts.
We changed our clothes just because we don't want people to get confused or think that we don't wash our clothes.
Yeah, but now they're my
Actually,
clothes.
Ben's washing his clothes right now.
My laundry is upstairs being... Anyway, it doesn't need... I do laundry regularly.
But I have like this really hot Calvin Klein like coat jacket thing, and I put it on over the shirt, and then sound guy Mike said that I couldn't have it because it's too rustly.
Yeah, but I like that shirt. I actually bought like 5 of them at once. They're all in different colors, and you're wearing the blue one.
It just feels like it's been washed too many times. It like is a different shape.
I bought that shirt when I lived in Tucson, so it's at least 5 years old.
So everybody comment, tell me if you think I look good in the shirt.
And my shirt, I also love.
Your shirt's cute. Where'd you get it?
When we were in the...
Deb has that shirt.
Yeah, when we were in the LGBTQ working group together, someone was like, we should all get the same shirt. And then like 4 of us bought it. So
yeah, I was also in that group chat and I did not buy it.
I bought it. It was like $30. It was expensive, but I love it. And I look great in it. So I think so. Anyway, let's move on.
We like to provide a variety of voices and perspectives. And today we're joined by Brian Tanner.
Hi, my name is Brian Tanner, and I'll have to tell you guys they did not offer me one of Ben's shirts, so I'm a little offended.
I've got a whole closet full right now.
They all say Tucson, Arizona, or Disneyland, or you have like 7 Golden Girls shirts.
And a bunch of Hufflepuff shirts, too.
It's because you tell people what you like.
And then people give me the things I like.
I'm going to think of some things I like. I'll let y'all know.
I love stiletto heels.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, Brian, we should be talking about you.
I was actually kind of stressing about that because I knew we were going to be on camera, and I'm just like, they always look so good, you know. And
oh, thank you.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's
a
a great hoodie. I wish I had it, honestly. Where did you get it?
A banana outlet.
Is that what you're going to do now? Yeah. Always ask people where they got their clothes. Inspired by last week's episode.
Brian, you're also the second or third Brian Tanner I know.
Really?
Not a terribly unique name.
Wow, that's interesting. When I was a kid, there was a show called Alf. Anyone?
Yeah.
Anyone?
He ate pizza and cats.
Yes, he did. He was an alien life form, Alf, and the boy on the show's name was Brian Tanner. Oh. And I was about his exact same age. And kids on the playground would ask me for my autograph. They're like, "You're Brian Tanner." Yeah. There were the Tanners on Full House as well. So
yes.
The 80s were a good decade for Tanner.
Do you know Uncle Jesse?
I wish.
He's aged
Asking
very well.
for a friend.
Yes. So anyway, tell us about you besides your name.
Okay, yeah, my name is Brian Tanner. I identify as bi.
I identify as hello.
Hello.
I don't understand that.
Because bye. Hello.
I don't know why you say goodbye. Say hello.
Ben, that's very reductive.
Okay, anyway.
So I'm originally from Bountiful, Utah. I've bounced around a little bit since then. I went to my mission, went on a mission in Brazil. And I went and did my undergrad at the University of Utah and a master's as well in vocal performance.
Oh.
And then I went to the University of Michigan.
You do know that we had another guest sing a song.
Oh, really?
So yeah. I don't know if that's something you're going to do, but actually please don't, because I felt so uncomfortable.
Really?
Yeah. I was like,
oh, I remember that.
I don't know
Christmas
what to do.
Yeah.
No,
Steve Smith sang.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Love you, Steve, but that was really hard for me to sit through.
He always sings. It's just what he does.
I know. Anyway.
I look at Mike, I would probably blow out your levels on me if I were to. Yeah. So I went to the University of Michigan for a doctorate in voice performance. And it was there that I actually met the woman that I would eventually marry. I guess a little bit about my journey is, I've known from, probably 10, 11, 12 that I was attracted to both women and men. But, as a child, I just didn't have the word or even the concept of bisexual. And so it was just kind of I guess I like women, but if I like men also, what does that mean? I don't know. It's confusing. I just won't even deal with it. So I just kind of put it to the side and didn't really date or anything like that. And actually, when I was at Michigan, this girl, Amy, was the first person I'd ever really dated seriously. And it went well until it didn't. And I was just like, and actually that was when Prop 8 happened in California. Our listeners are probably aware of Prop 8. But that was something that really caused me to kind of like, you know, it's just like, wait, what is happening? What is the church doing? And the church is making statements. What is this? And it made me feel like I need to confront this and I need to figure this out. And so I was like, I'm sorry, I can't be in a relationship right now, you know, and which was really hard because I didn't feel like I could talk about it, you know, what was going on with me. And yeah, it was a very hard breakup for her. And actually, this is kind of related to our topic today. One thing that really helped us come closer to each other is right before we broke up, we started watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV series, which is my favorite TV show.
I'm feeling like way young right now because I don't know what any of y'all are talking about.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer was based on a movie called Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was...
Is that the one that Phoebe from Friends is in?
No.
I
don't...
Anyway, I don't know.
It was Phoebe Buffay, maybe. That's where you're thinking Buffy.
Buffy. Anyway, I'm so sorry. I'm just going to never talk again now.
Anyway, it's a show. There's 144 episodes of it, so it's a big show. We had just started watching season 1 when we broke up, and you know, when we were breaking up, there were tears and everything. And she's like, "Does this mean we can't watch Buffy together anymore?" But I was like, "No, we can watch Buffy." So even after we broke up, I kept going over to her house like several times a week and watching a couple episodes of Buffy. And
how did you watch it? This is pre-Netflix.
We DVDs from the library. Oh. Yeah, actually, no, I think I own them, but yeah. And it was just a great opportunity to just talk. It's despite the kind of ludicrous title, it's a very deep show about a lot of, you know, growing up and aging and coming into your power. And I don't know, it's just documenting this time in your life that's very formative that we both found ourselves in. And it just, watching this show was a way that we grew closer to each other. We could talk about things. And we just developed a really, really good friendship through watching this. And so we're talking about media in this conversation. I'm just a media nut, you know. When I was in high school, I used to host a film lecture series in my basement where we would watch classic movies and I would give a lecture beforehand, like I was on TCM or something like that. You know, we'd watch like Sunset Boulevard or All About Eve or Bridge on the River Kwai or something. I'd give a little lecture and then we talk about it afterwards. So
that's so fun.
That sounds really, I kind of want to do that right now.
I would totally do it. It was called Brian Presents, the series. It would be like, Brian Presents, you know.
You would so have a YouTube channel if it had been a thing back then.
Anyway, so... yeah, it was years later when after we'd both graduated and she moved down here and got a job teaching at BYU, and then our paths crossed again. I was living in Portland. I saw her there. And by that point, I just felt bad about what had happened. And I just told her, you know, this is what I was going through. And I just told her everything. And she was so incredibly supportive. And we had such a strong basis of friendship. And it just was the right time then. And then pretty soon after that, we were married. And in May, it'll be 10 years since we got married. And
wow, congratulations.
Yeah, we have 2 kids, a boy who will turn 9 pretty soon and a girl who just turned 7.
Oh, you guys did not waste time with that 9-year-old.
No, I think because we were both in our 30s by the time we got married, you know, and we were just like, you know what, let's just get this thing started, you know? I came to this point where I realized, like, compared to a lot of other queer Latter-day Saints, I'm in a very privileged position, you know, because for a lot of queer LDS people, it's like there's this tension that never goes away between like their commitment to their testimony in the gospel and following those teachings and the desire for intimacy and companionship. And they just can't be reconciled. And I'm just like, in my situation as a bisexual man who's married to a woman, I just don't have that tension, you know, and I just felt like a tremendous sense of privilege, and I just felt like I can't just sit here and just kind of hide, you know, and not be visible and not do something.
Well, that's interesting. It reminds me of some other guests we've had on who are bisexual and talk about bi erasure.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like that for you was kind of like a comfortable space that you could just like slip into.
Yeah.
Huh.
You know, I printed out, I was doing a little research before I came on here.
Yeah.
So this is a Gallup poll from 2013. These are the most recent numbers, but out of the LGBTQ community, 55% of them say they identify as bi. So more than half of LGBTQ people identify as bi. Of those people who are gay, 77% of them say that they are out. Among lesbians, it's 71% say they're out. So 77 for gay, 71 for lesbian. Do you guys know what the number is for bi?
I'm imagining it's pretty low.
Yeah. It's pretty dismal. It's 28%.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
You know, because it is easy to hide, you know? And when I came out, it just felt like it was such an amazing experience. I was fortunate to have a good reaction, possibly because, you know, I'm able to be married to a woman and not be, you know.
You're living the life people would want you to live.
Exactly.
A comfortable life.
Exactly, yeah. And so when I came out, I got a great reception from my family, from my friends, from my coworkers, even. And I haven't mentioned up to this point, but I work at BYU Broadcasting, and so that's been a really cool place to be.
And you're a singer there?
I've been there for a few years, mostly doing marketing over the years, but just at the beginning of this year, I moved into a job that I love. I am the producer for a podcast called The Appleseed. It's a storytelling program for families. It's fairy tales and folk tales and people getting up on stage and telling a personal story about themselves, and even like original radio dramas and stuff like that. So I'm like writing scripts, you know, for
That's so
dramas
cool.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
If you want to produce a podcast for free, we've got one for you. Just kidding.
I'm busy producing another one actually. So, but it felt so good to me to be visible and to be helpful in this space. And in fact, I was able to help organize with some other employees at BYU Broadcasting, that is, like a training about just like how to make this a more inclusive workplace.
Cool.
For LGBTQ people. Particularly, we have I don't know a lot of like full-time employees that are out there, but we have a lot of students, you know. We have a lot of people from the film program and from the theater program. And as you can imagine, there are quite a lot of queer people who are drawn to that space. Hello, opera major, you know. So I think that I've been able to...
Can you sing Nessun Dorma? Can you hit it? Are you a tenor?
I am a tenor, yeah. I'm feeling a little scratchy tonight. I've been talking a lot.
We're not going to make you sing.
It's dusty in here. There's a lot of books.
So it's just, I feel like I've been able to just be an advocate. And as soon as I came out, I'm like, I should know the players on BYU campus. So I went and met Ben. That's when I got to know him. And
One of the many players.
players.
You didn't meet me?
No, I
I'm
have.
just kidding.
I don't think you remember this at all, but I have met you before.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm the worst.
No, this is like a situation where I'm just like, why would you remember this? But or remember that it was me. So right after the Elder Holland talk last year, we had a meeting for the advancement.
Yes,
thing.
yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and
Oh my gosh, I did not want to be there.
You had to cheer. And I had just heard your podcast with your reactions, you know, on the topic of like what happens when a church leader says something that is uncomfortable or hurtful. And I saw you there, and I'm just like, oh man, he's having to get up and cheer at this thing today.
I actually do remember you, and you stopped me in the hallway, right?
Yeah, I stopped you in the hallway.
That was so meaningful. That was so meaningful because I was really upset that day. I did not want to be wearing that uniform. I felt like I was representing a university that didn't represent me, and I was like really upset. And that was like, thank you. Yeah. That meant a lot to me that day.
I saw the cheer team all lined up, and I was just like, oh man, is Charlie here? This has got to be really hard. Yeah. So anyway,
thank you.
I'm glad that was helpful to you. So
cool.
And I remember as I was walking away, I was like, I'm by the way. And you were like, great, congratulations. And I was like, yeah, what were you going to say? But yeah. So should we talk about
We should get to the topic. Yeah, let's get there.
So this is a question I've been asked at firesides that people have submitted. They really want to know, like, is it okay to watch movies or read books that have LGBTQ characters? So, so Brian, why do you think people might have this question? Like, where does this question come from?
Yeah, can I start with something that is one of my favorite? You know, as I was saying, I'm kind of I was a teenage like classic film nerd and stuff like that, and I was a big disciple.
Brian presents.
Yes, Brian presents. I was a big disciple of Roger Ebert. Like he used to publish this column, it was called The Great Movies, where every other week he would highlight some great movie and I'd go rent them all. You know, he was like kind of going to film school. And I would read everything that Roger Ebert wrote. And this is a sentiment that he expressed a lot of times that I just really stuck with me, and I really believe in this. So I just brought a little quote to read. So Roger Ebert says, "We're all born with a certain package. We are who we are. Where we were born, who we were born as, how we were raised, we're kind of stuck inside of that person. And the purpose of civilization and growth is to be able to reach out and empathize a little bit with other people, find out what makes them tick and what they care about. For me, the movies are like a machine that generates empathy. If it's a great movie, it lets you understand a little bit more about what it's like to be a different gender, a different race, a different age, a different economic class, a different nationality, a different profession, different hopes, aspirations, dreams, and fears. And I might add, a different orientation. It helps us to identify with the people who are sharing this journey with us. And that, to me, is the most noble thing that good movies can do. And it's a reason to encourage them and to support them and to go see them."
I like that.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Because I think that there are few things that are more powerful than a movie or a TV show than giving you a glimpse of what another person's life is like. You know, it's just stepping inside of their shoes, especially when the creative team behind it, the writers, the directors, or the people who are involved in the production come from that world and they know it and they can authentically represent it. And so I've probably shown my cards here, but yes, I am in favor of watching media with LGBTQ characters in it, because I think it's a way that you can step into those, take a walk in their shoes.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, I've heard of it.
And just see what their world is like, you know? And when people have an opposition to this, I think that a lot of times it's kind of coming from, it can be coming from many different places, but I think it's coming from fear in some ways.
Totally.
Of the unknown. Or a common thing that I've dealt with. There was a big brouhaha at the library last summer where I live in Orem. Where they did a pride display, and it turned into this thing with grandstanding politicians and stuff like that.
Get out. And, how did I miss that?
Yeah, it was a thing.
You were doing an internship.
And kind of the gist of what everyone was saying was like, just leaving this material out in the open, kids are just going to stumble upon this and they may not be ready for it. And so that's kind of reflecting that people are feeling like the grown-up or the parent should be the gatekeeper of how their children receive information. And I think we're seeing that across lots of disciplines right now. I mean, as we're talking right now, they've just passed this don't say gay bill in Florida,
right?
And there are all these talks about like, critical race theory in classrooms and what can we say and what can we teach. I think that it's all stemming from the same place of like, I want to be the person who's in control of what my child is absorbing all of the time, including the media they're watching.
And so parents are afraid of their kids being exposed to LGBTQ characters.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like if I'm a parent, I'm not, but I would want to have like boundaries for my child, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, I think the kicker for me is that just being a gay person, being an LGBTQ character, is inherently viewed by a lot of people as an adult theme.
Yeah.
When I feel like I would like to see a separation between like someone who is gay and like a gay character in a movie versus like adult or explicit content.
Yes.
Right? And because we don't do that for straight people. Like you can watch the movies if they're G or PG-13.
Yeah.
But if it's R or I don't know, mature or something like that, I think people are really good at making that differentiation of it's okay to see a couple, a person. You know what I mean? Like why is it inherently explicit to be gay?
Yeah. And I think it goes back to previous conversations we've had where like sexual orientation is viewed like as a sexual thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like, you know, if there are two like LGBTQ teens having crushes on each other, it's not necessarily sexual. It's
right. Or I think it's also looked at by a lot of people as a learned behavior. So like if these children at the library stumble upon a book with a gay character, they'll become gay. But I've read countless books with straight characters, and I mean, I read the Twilight series. Oh wait, that doesn't help. Do you know what I like so many like romance novels and movies with heterosexual characters, and I never turned straight.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I think when people say like, oh, this person watched this movie or read this book and then they came out. It turned them gay is how they look at it. But probably what happened was they were already feeling these feelings and they saw a representation of themselves that maybe they hadn't seen before. And they saw like, this is acceptable and this is good. And it gave them the courage to finally come out instead of hiding and amassing more shame.
Or even just the framework. I mean, you talked about how you didn't really know what was going on, and then you found the concept, the word of bisexual, and you're like, oh, I relate to that. That's what this is.
I remember when Love, Simon came out, there's this really special moment where he's talking to his mom and he comes out to his mom and his mom says something like, I feel like I'm seeing you breathe for the first time. And I remember like that hitting me like, oh my gosh, I relate to that. And then I heard so many people say like yes, that's line. What it feels like. And you know, seeing someone say something or act in a way that like represents your lived experience that you haven't seen before can be super powerful.
You guys have talked on the show before about, you did a whole bonus episode about like Disney movies. And how you can
how they're super gay.
How you can read them as like allegories for the like Latter-day Saint queer experience or something. And that's actually a really common thing for people to go through and select movies. And Disney movies are very common, I think, because they're very popular. Everyone knows them, to apply these readings to. And I think doing readings like that is good. It's helpful, you know, like it, if you can find a way to see yourself in it. And it's not just queer people. I mean, like anybody who feels like I'm an outcast, I want something else. I want, you know, like I don't belong in my city, or, you know, things relating to their gender or their socioeconomic class. You can layer a lot of stories on them. But I think that the problem comes when that's all you have is stories where you have to add something that's not in the text. You have to add your own reading, you know, and when you never see like, but a person like me is actually in this story, you know, I think that can be really sad if you're just like, I'm not in these stories. I can write myself into the story, but I'm not there. It's
like claiming the story as your own, even though inherently or like overtly it's not.
Yes.
Well, exactly. I feel like that's what people did with Frozen, because it was like this, I'm a defect. There's like this horrible thing. And then like by sharing or whatever and then like everyone's convinced that the Elsa character is gay, but I mean,
it's not in the text. It's something that you have to read into it. It's pretty easy for a lot of people to make that jump. But
you're saying there's something more powerful about it being more obvious.
Saying like, yes, I'm a person like me is actually in this show. So and I wanted to talk about on the show today a very powerful example from a movie that came out last year that does this, and it does it. It walks a tightrope so well of being a movie that feels accessible to families and is entertaining, but it also contains people that are in the text, a queer character, and I haven't met anybody that has a problem with it. So it's the Mitchells versus the Machines.
Brian, you need to meet more people. There's got to be someone who's got a problem with it.
Yeah, it's true. There probably are.
Okay, so it's the Mitchells versus the Machines.
The Mitchells versus the Machines. It came out on Netflix last year. It was one of those like supposed to be in theaters, but then COVID, so it was on Netflix instead. And I'm going to kind of get into what the movie does.
Spoiler alerts?
Spoiler alerts.
Oh, no.
Don't spoil it too much.
So, like, guys, like, this is a moment, like, pause the podcast. If you want to watch it, go watch the movie, come back.
You're so respectful of movies.
I'm, like, driving away your audience for you, you know. But, okay, so Mitchells versus the Machines. It's a animated 3D movie. It's from the same people who did the Lego movie and Into the Spider-Verse. So
Spider-Verse was very good.
If you guys like those movies, check this movie out. It's so good. So there is a family, mom, dad, daughter named Katie, and son and a dog, you know. And just like so many Disney heroines, the girl feels like, I don't belong here. I'm misunderstood. I need to find my tribe somewhere else. And she's a filmmaker. Like, she goes around making little movies on her smartphone all the time. She gets accepted into film school, clear on the other side of the country. You know, she's mostly at odds with her dad. That's like the central relationship. It's just like, they just don't get each other. They just don't connect, you know? But when she gets accepted into film school and she starts like FaceTiming with the people there, she's like, these are my people. This is the place where I need to go. And there's one girl in particular that she starts to like kind of vibe with, you know? And the dad's like, well, before my girl heads out into the world, I need some bonding time. Let's take a road trip all the way across the country, you know? And
This reminds me of College Road Trip with Raymond Simone.
Except for robot apocalypse in the middle.
What?
So there's this robot apocalypse that's really fun. It's a fun action-packed movie. My kids love it. They've seen it all, like, I don't know, half a dozen times.
Did it turn them gay? I'm just
Wait, we don't know that yet.
But fast forwarding to the end, not spoiling anything that happens with the robots, but she's at film school and she's FaceTiming with her parents. And they're like, so how's college? And she's like, oh, it's so great. I love it here. And they're like, so, I can't remember the name of the girl at the school, but she's like, are you and so official yet? And she's like, oh, come on, we're just taking it slow. And she's like, oh, it's okay. We're just excited. Anyway, how's this going or whatever? And that was the moment, like when that happened, that just made me, it brought me to tears. Like it made me well up. And there'd been little things along the way, like she wears a little rainbow pin on her sweatshirt and other things that like I definitely clued in on. But like I was asking my wife, she's like, "Oh, I didn't notice that at all." You know.
Yeah.
Here's a movie where we could have just.
Can I pause you?
Yeah.
I noticed you got even a little emotional. I was talking about right now.
Yeah.
Where's that emotion coming from?
Well, I think it's like. All this time where you're having to watch these movies and say like, I wish that I saw myself in here. I have to read myself into it. And then all of a sudden it's just like, no, this person actually is queer. You don't have to read this as a queer movie. It is.
And it sounds like it was like a really organic, natural thing. It wasn't like a big...
And what I love is like when you're doing a queer reading of, something like The Little Mermaid or whatever, where the person has to leave their home and stuff like that. In those stories that you're writing, it's kind of like the queerness is the thing that's driving the wedge between the characters. But in this one, it's revealed like they already knew that she was queer and they didn't care. In fact, they were happy about it, that she finally found someone. And the conflict between the characters was just because they're very different people with very different personalities. That was so... I was just agog when I saw this movie. So I'm just like, it actually put a queer person into a family movie and made them textually queer, but in a way that is family friendly. I was just like, this movie has solved the riddle. So I encourage everyone to see it, share it with loved ones. It's so good.
Brian, you were talking about this idea of like seeing people in like seeing yourself in movies and the beauty in that, but also like building empathy. And one thing that just happened recently is I have a student in one of my classes who I took her to lunch because I invite all my students to come to lunch with me. It's really fun. And she was telling me how much she loved to read and how she likes to make book recommendations for people. So she asked me which books I liked, and then she made me a list of books to read, like an email, like that. 20 books.
Yeah.
And I've been going through it, and it's awesome. And some of them are LGBTQ books. And one of them is this book called This Is Always How It Is. By Laura Frankel, I think is her name. And it's about this family and these two really liberal parents that have a transgender child. And just like all the things they're like thinking about and all the conflicts and the discussions and it was just like so good for me to read this book, because not only was it like written in a really fun way, like I don't know what it's like to be a parent.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to be a parent of a trans kid. And I don't know what it's like to be a trans kid. Yeah. There's like being in each of these people's shoes, if you will.
Yeah.
It was like really good for me to like have some empathy. And then I have a good friend who now has a trans child, and we were able to talk about it. And I was able to understand her experience so much more because I'd stepped into this novel for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So after I came out to all my friends, I was still at BYU, it was my senior year, and like my whole friend group knew. Without telling me, they're like, hey, we're going to see a movie. And they just told me what time. I was like, okay, I'm busy, but I'll show up. And they had a group together, and they had gotten tickets for everyone to see Love, Simon. Which, again, like, sorry to reference like the same movie, but it was like a pretty big deal when it came out, as far as like a coming out story.
Oh, yeah.
Like a blockbuster film. And it was really relatable to a lot of people. And I remember that experience was super important to me because on the one hand, I just felt so supported by my friends. Like they were all like excited. We're like, we're going to do this for Charlie and like show him how much we care. And that was really special. And at the same time, I also felt like it helped them develop empathy.
Yeah.
And they could like feel some of, because you feel like when you watch a movie or read a book, like you feel it. Like, you are the main character. So it gave them a little taste of like what I'd been going through, like even just 2 weeks prior, which was cool. And then it also opened up some really cool conversations afterwards. And they were able to note like what parts made them uncomfortable. And I was like, yeah, some of that made me uncomfortable too. And we were able to discuss that and like grow individually, but also grow together.
Yeah. In that way, the way you're describing is like a shared experience. Like, you can't share the experience of being Charlie or being gay. Like, you can't make them just feel that. But like, a movie comes close to simulating it, and you all watched the same thing. You can have a shared experience that you can talk about, you know? And confession time, I actually hadn't seen Love, Simon until yesterday. I'm like, I'm going on to talk about this. I guess I better see one of the most.
You watched it to prepare for this episode?
Yes, I did, yeah. But, you know, and what's interesting is it was the first movie made by a major studio to have like a big central teen gay romance or something like that. And that's something also that I've thought about is like, I would love to see more representation of other kinds of people, like people who are religious or maybe even, you know, Latter-day Saints or something like that. Yeah. But
well, I have 2 great books you can read. Yeah. They're ours.
Yes. Is somebody going to option those for a movie deal? But
I'll play myself.
Yes. I think Charlie should play Ben.
Oh, I don't want to do that. My hand would cramp from journaling so much.
Anyway, back to the topic.
No, but the thing that a movie like that faces when it comes out is like, if you're talking about like a romantic comedy, you know, there are thousands of examples of that. So if you make a really bad one, people are just like, it's a bad romantic comedy. If you make a really good one, people are like, oh, that's a good romantic comedy.
But then it's like, it was bad because it was a gay character.
Yeah, or something like that. Or it's like, it's the only one of its kind, so it's going to undergo a level of scrutiny. That a movie in a more plentiful genre will not undergo. You know?
That makes sense.
So I think that whatever comes along that's going to be like the first like LDS, LGBTQ kind of movie or something like that is going to undergo a lot of scrutiny, and that may turn away the gatekeepers from wanting to make more or thinking, oh, I don't want to put myself under fire. But it just won't get better. There won't be better representation until there are more examples of it. You know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you just kind of have to like push through that initial barrier, and then it's something that's possible.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's pushing a gay agenda?
I think it's
because I feel like that's the counter argument. Like, this is like throwing your sexuality in our faces.
So I think that's something that people would say, but the way I see it is we're just representing the world as it is.
Yes.
So do we live in a world where LGBTQ people exist? And I think there are people who would say, no, we don't live in that world. I do think we live in a world with LGBTQ people. I also think we do. And therefore, I think the media we view and like the books we read and the movies we watch should reflect the realities of our world. And like Brian said, to create empathy and understanding. And, you know, I talked about that one book, but I remember watching The Help for the first time and just like being like really moved by it. I know people think it's problematic for certain reasons, but anyway, it was really moving to me. And then I read the book, and it just burst my heart open with like this experience I'd never even considered of being like a black person in the South.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, I was in therapy, and I was just kind of like mourning the fact that I never had like the gay adolescence was kind of difficult for me, and that I was like 25 and like trying to date and figure myself out, and I felt overwhelmed, and I was like, I feel like an idiot. I was never.
Sometimes you acted like an idiot,
Ben, and you never did. But yeah, like it was just really overwhelming, and I felt like there was a lot of like things that I hadn't prepared for, and I was kind of like, you know what, I got robbed. Like I felt like I was robbed of those experiences. And as I was talking with my therapist, I was like, oh my gosh, like I could read books about like 9th grade crush, you know, and like kind of like go back and have those experiences. And so I did. Like I made a conscious effort to seek out media that felt like I was represented in, that felt like safe and appropriate, but also that kind of allowed me to vicariously live those experiences and like gain that knowledge. And it was really healing. It was really cool to like retroactively be able to do that and kind of like gain more empathy for myself, but kind of like fix that anger I had, feeling like I missed out on something.
So I had a similar experience where like toned down. It wasn't like I wasn't feeling like anger, like sensing lost years. But a friend recommended a book called What If It's Us, about these two gay teens in New York. It's a YA novel, and it's pretty good. There's some F words in it, just so everyone knows.
Oh my gosh, man, that's see?
Actually, the other
You're
book
not helping the cause.
Actually, the other book I recommended also has some swears in it. So anyway, I'm so sorry. Oh, no. But it's just about like these two gay teens, that they're gay, and that's not the central part of the story.
Yeah.
And it was just like fun to just like see this experience of like, you know, what if I could have had that? Like, what would that have been like? And just like to step in those, like to put myself in their place. It honestly felt a little healing to me. And it was a good book too. I actually just re-listened to it. It was very good too.
So can I go down like a path that's like a little bit different?
Yeah.
But okay, so I was at the store the other day, and I don't know, I was like walking by the baby clothes, and I noticed there was like shirts for like infants that said like lady killer or the like girls give me kisses or whatever. And I just had this thought of kind of what I was mentioning earlier of like pushing the gay agenda or like putting sexuality onto someone. I'm like, we do that with infants. Like we like put like relationships and sexual orientations, granted it's a straight sexual orientation, but we like push that to children so comfortably. And I wonder like, why is it so uncomfortable, just like the thought that somebody who's gay exists and is represented in media? I just think that's like an interesting question to ask yourself.
Yeah, and the whole shoving it in your face argument, I'm just like, if you made that about a different group, if you said like, oh, there's a black person in this show and they're shoving that in my face, or there's a Jewish person or something, it sounds like a really gross argument. Yeah. You know?
Well, and also I have like 40 wedding announcements on my fridge currently, and they're all heterosexual couples. And so like, that's just like, if you have a relationship, you want to share it with people, and it's not like shoving it in your face. Anyway, that's my soapbox. I'll step down.
Do you know what the Bechdel test is?
I do, yes.
The Bechdel? What is that?
It's this way to see if women are represented well in like media.
Oh, yeah.
So there has to be two women with names talking about something that's not a man.
Not a man.
Yeah. So we should come with like a Tanner test or something. But there has to be like two queer characters with names that are talking about something that isn't their orientation.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's important too, because I think a lot of people think like, if there's going to be a gay character in this, they're just going to be like gay the whole time, you know? And I think it's progressive to have a gay character where the character doesn't have to be all about that. You know, it's just can be like, hey, this is a person and this is just like one thing about them.
Well, because it builds something deeper than the stereotype.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Same.
You know, I have a family member who I consider to be kind of conservative person, you know, and the things they post on Facebook and stuff like that. But they recently posted something saying like, just got through watching all 11 seasons of Modern Family with the hubby. What a great show. We loved it so much. And it's like, I think that that's important. The fact that they had those two, you know, married gay couple raising a baby on there. And the fact that that was able to, people that was able to go down easy enough to get through to, you know, to otherwise conservative people. I think that really says something. And is every storyline about Mitch or Cameron like about how they're gay? No, sometimes it's just like, oh, I have this crazy thing happen to me at work and stuff like that. So I think when you're in a situation like that where it's like, yes, these are gay characters, but it doesn't have to be like, oh, this is a gay thing that is happening to them or something.
Can I tell a story about Modern Family?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like
also my dream is to be Phil Dunphy.
Yeah.
I feel like dream fulfilled, Ben. Good job.
But like with home ownership.
So I spent a lot of my life, the majority of it, actively avoiding any LGBTQ representation because I bought in. It's so funny that like I like speak to the same things I used to believe, right? I'm just like, why would you believe this? But I did. Like I was scared of being gay. I was scared of gay people, a ton of internalized homophobia, a lot of shame. And so like I remember the first time I heard Born This Way by Lady Gaga on the radio. And, like I was driving to pick my little sister up from piano lessons and I was shocked and I was disgusted. And then like I had one of my favorite artists was playing near my hometown but it was for Pride and it was a free concert, but I didn't go because I didn't want to support that. And like I didn't listen to Sam Smith. And so I came home from my mission And my family had started watching Modern Family. And I was so uncomfortable. I was like so uncomfortable, and they were like all watching it on like just eating popcorn, like all the kids and their husbands or whatever. And I like went into the other room. This is super post mission. I was so uncomfortable with that. And I was like, I can't believe that like Satan has made its way into my home while I was on my mission. And I guess I point that out just to say that like, I don't know. Why do I point that out?
Well, can I build off that a little bit?
Yeah, please.
So, we've talked earlier about the stages of coming out. And when someone's in like stage 1 or 2 of the coming out process, they're looking for reassurances that they aren't LGBTQ.
Right.
And so seeing yourself represented or seeing something that you might resonate with could be really scary. And so I think not watching media with LGBTQ characters can just be part of like self-preservation.
Yeah.
And I think
totally.
And I think that's just a really normal part of the process. And so I don't think anyone should feel shame for like wanting to avoid something. It's just natural, a natural part of just like coming to understand who you are and taking things as you're ready.
Yeah, I know we have a lot of different listeners on different parts of their journey, and I think sometimes different things are uncomfortable, but I just want to hold space for anybody who's feeling that. And also I think that's an important thing for like parents and allies to understand, that like everyone's kind of at a different stage and they're coming out, and like comes out in different ways, right? Like it takes different lengths. And for me, it's like so strange to look back and think that like 6 or 7 years ago, I like was absolutely against watching Modern Family because it was too gay.
Yeah.
And what I'm also hearing you say is like, let's say your parents or your mom or your siblings like thought you were gay, and they like tried to force you to consume that. That
would have been really uncomfortable for me.
So like, let's let people be where they are.
But like a couple years later, I was on a flight and I was like, oh,
with Lady Gaga.
I wish, but I was like, oh, it's that Modern Family show that made me uncomfortable, and then I really liked it, and I watched a lot of them.
So when it came time to come out to your family, did the fact that they had watched Modern Family and they were comfortable with it and seeing these gay characters, did you think about that at all? Or?
Yeah, I think kind of, not really, but it also kind of scared me because Cam in that show is from Missouri, and I'm from Missouri, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna, like, I don't want to be compared to him because I'm different than him.
Yeah.
But I guess in some ways I might be similar. I don't know. And so I was just like worried for that, but I don't know, maybe in a roundabout way it like helped prepare some of my family members, just like having even that loose association with a gay couple. But my family actually has been more comfortable, like historically more comfortable talking about like me getting married and having kids with a man than I have been. Like that's kind of, they've all been just like, yeah, if you want to like get married to a man and have kids. Like when I first came out, I was like, whoa, what are you talking about? And they were like, what? And so I wonder if that's where it came from.
Super progressive rural Missourians.
Strange. I was also kind of thinking back to my thought on separating adult material from queer material and characters.
What do you mean by adult material?
Just like sexually explicit or inappropriate or violent or anything that would be rated, I guess, like R or PG-13 mature. I'm not sure. And I think with that, it makes sense to me to take the same approach you would take with like any movie. If you're worried about your children, like being exposed to things that like do have adult themes or like can be scary or, you know, like you can watch the movie first and like see what you think or read the book first. And I think that's just like general good practice, you know?
What about people who, you know, are in their 20s, 30s, 40s or something like that, who are thinking about watching LGBTQ media? I mean, do you think that there are there might be some reasons why they might think like this is something that I don't want to watch, if they're not even considering like how children might perceive it?
Maybe like not wanting to condone the behavior. I think that's like a word or like a feeling that a lot of people express in like a religious space. Like I want to support this person, I want to know about it, but I don't want to condone or like support too much that.
So the same people who wouldn't watch shows with LGBTQ characters also wouldn't watch shows with robbers.
There you go.
Because they don't want to condone stealing.
Well, I think there's a lot of media bias in that, like, so I personally am really affected by like violent movies. Like I just can't do it. It really impacts me. I don't like watching. And so even if there's a show that's like PG-13 or PG or a book that's like, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm really sensitive to that. Whereas other people are just like, oh, don't worry, there's no sex. It's just violence. So it's fine. And that always shocks me. I'm like, so watching somebody murder is better than watching somebody have sex. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense in my mind. And so I think there's a lot of ways we like, this is okay, but this isn't. And this is okay. And I think it's important to check yourself on like, is the media that I'm watching actually uplifting me? Am I watching this movie to like, am I gaining empathy from this, or is it just like interesting to watch these people fight, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I think that kind of goes back to what you're saying. I don't remember exactly why, but that's, but can you link that thought to your original
I think
question?
that nobody's making the argument like, oh, you're condoning murder by watching this.
Yes.
You know?
Thank you. Thank you. Cause it's like other things are not, but with being gay, because that's the bias I was talking about, like the condoning.
Yeah.
Or like you watch a movie with, I don't know, like someone who is unfaithful. Is that condoning infidelity? No.
Yeah.
I just read a book that had LGBTQ characters and someone who was unfaithful.
Ben, I'm going to have to look at this book list.
It was
I'm going to tell the Orem librarian.
It was really good. It was called Anxious People. I would highly recommend it.
So anyway, there's some interesting thoughts.
You know, we were talking about like being able to apply queer readings to things. It's interesting now that I'm a podcast producer now in my new role. And I recently wrote a script. We actually recorded it today. It's a fictional, just an original idea that I had. It's about 15 minutes, an audio drama. It'll have sound effects and the whole thing and everything.
Cool.
And it's about a family of art thieves. And so it's kind of like
Yikes.
well, actually, that's kind of the reaction that I got to my first draft. They're like, yeah, we like the story, but they're kind of stealing. Is that okay? So anyway, I kind of flipped it. So it's like, oh, they actually go and steal art that has been stolen, and then they return
classic Robin
Hood.
Hood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're kind of Robin Hood family. So there's lots of like these spy cliches of like the red lasers and the just having some fun with like Mission Impossible kind of stuff. And I was just writing because I'm like, this will be a fun story. We're a family podcast with all this stuff. But as I was writing it, I got really surprised during the process because I found that I started pouring all of these really personal things relating to my coming out process into the story. Because what happens in the story is one of the characters, even though their skill is that they have really amazing hands. They can pick any lock, they can cut glass, they can rewire things or whatever. And they're just like, my dream in life is I want to be a surgeon. You know, I don't want to be an art thief. And when the family finds out, they're just like really, really disappointed. They're just like, oh, honey, you know, like this is
That's not what our family does.
That's not what our family does, you know? And some of the conversations that they end up having and just the themes of like, I have this part of me that I feel like is an inherent part of me. And I feel like I have to hide it from the people that I love. And some of the conversations and some of the lines that they were saying to each other, I'm like, I had a very similar conversation with my parents when I came out a year ago, you know? So it's just interesting being like an LGBTQ creator. And I wasn't setting out to write like an LGBTQ piece, but that just ended up just kind of seeping into it, you know?
Yeah. Brian, I think that's just really beautiful that your own personal experiences end up in the writing. Even though it's not explicit, you're able to show yourself, and then other people going through a similar thing, whether it be, you know, being LGBTQ or some other way they might not feel that they fit in, can maybe connect with that character just a little bit.
And I think that's really interesting. I just read an article today about a show that I liked a lot from about 10 years ago called Pushing Daisies.
Oh my gosh, I love that show.
Pushing Daisies? So
that's like one of my favorite shows.
I hadn't read this until now, but the creator of that show, so kind of a central conceit is that there are these two people who are in love with each other, but there are all these supernatural forces that keep them from touching each other.
Yes. Yes. I related so much because like they can't ever touch, but they're in love. I was like,
exactly. So the creator, even though it's not like a queer story or about queer characters, he was talking about how he had lived through like the AIDS epidemic in New York City, and he saw so many of his friends dying. And it was basically like, if you enter in a relationship, if you kind of touch someone, you could end up dead. You know, and so even though it's not a story with like LGBTQ characters in the text, it's like the creator is kind of putting some of their experience into the work. And I think that you can still learn empathy from watching a story like that.
The fact that show got canceled is one of the great travesties of the 21st century.
I know, I love that show too. Kristen Chenoweth,
she's so good. And the writing is just so good. And it's just, and the puns, so many puns. Yes. He works in a pie shop called the Pie Hole.
Amazing.
It's very clever.
It's very twee. Yeah. It's so
they would do like visual pun. Oh, it's just so good.
I love it. I'm gonna have to watch it.
So watch Pushing Daisies. Watch Mitchell's
This
vs.
is
Machines,
just like turning into like a marketing machine for like things that
Listen
we like.
to the Appleseed podcast.
You know, I was thinking, I have a final thought if I can share.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm thinking if anyone is like still listening to this and wondering if they should kind of like consume LGBTQ media, gotcha, because you've been doing it for the past hour. Because this is Questions from the Closet.
Yes. We're kind of preaching to the choir.
And
here,
this is like inherently we are LGBTQ media.
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny.
And maybe we should do an episode that passes the Tanner test, that is two queer people with names talking about things that aren't about being queer.
That's why we have our similarity.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
That's why I'm wearing your shirt. Take a walk in your shoes. Take a stroll in your shirt.
Take a sit in my shirt. Take a podcast recording in my shirt.
Anyway, hey, thank you so much for being on. This has been a really fun discussion.
This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for joining us today. If you have enjoyed this or other episodes, please consider leaving a review, following us on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook at Questions from the Closet, or sharing this podcast with someone you love. And as always, please remember that we do not represent the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or Brigham Young University. We are not trying to be prescriptive or tell anyone what to think or what to do.
You heard 3 perspectives today, and there are many, many more. We encourage you to listen to other voices and hear a wide variety of experiences. If you would like to submit a question or share a comment about today's episode, you can email us at questionsfromthecloset@gmail.com. Until next time.